Welcome, everyone. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second try. We had some technical issues just before. But this is a new installment of the interview series where I talk with men that could become my allies. I'm looking for men that can inspire me, that I can learn from, that could be my allies, that I can stand next to and grow together with. I've met few of them on my 15-year journey through the land of women exploring the art of seduction, but I've decided to look harder. And so I've been connecting with guys that I think may have something I can learn from, inspire, that I can get inspired by, or could be my allies. And these interviews are here to present to you their work, but also for me to get to know their world a little bit better. Today, I'm going to be talking to Michael Skye. It's funny that we talk in this rather formal setting, because we have some very informal encounters over the past months, and you will learn much about that very shortly. We met, Michael and I, in 2018 during the 5-day experience here in Malaga, Andalusia, Spain. And we connected on the level of honor. His work is an honor before, and as you know, I wrote a book, The Way of a Seducer, a code of honor to a lost art. And it's just the juxtaposition between that honor on the one hand and the other hand desire that really we connected over. And I've seen it rarely in a man who has honor so high as a value and at the same time is a complete scoundrel. So today I want to introduce to you his work, his story, and also talk about a couple of concepts that could be of a huge interest to people that are exploring how to become more magnificent with women, and specifically the power of vision, the power of making a stand, the power of honor. So we'll be talking about that. I'll give you.
Hans, I thought we were going to be talking about the power of spanking.
That too. Halfway through the call, but if you want to hear about that, guys, go to the 20-minute mark. No, we surely will be talking about that. Let me give a little. Before I continue, since that day in Malaga, we also talked business. Since Michael is an accomplished businessman, and it's an area I never really explored until I started talking to him. And he actually became my business mentor, and I'm looking through the eyes of business, of entrepreneurship, through all my work. And it has been very invigorating to me, a complete paradigm shift. And it's been an incredible journey since. I'm very impatient, but at the same time, very invigorated by the viewpoint of business, how to have more people in this community, how to reach more people. So that's how we continued to connect. After Malaga, we flew together to Bucharest, and then we spent the past month actually in Kenya. Michael is still in Kenya. I'm back in Malaga for a while, and then we will be meeting again in a couple of weeks in Bangkok. All right, here's an overview, very short, 1-minute overview of this call, what you can expect. We'll start with Michael's story, past, present, and future. And then we'll go a little bit into the work he did before and the work he's doing right now. And then we'll finish by what he's anticipating with great joy in the near future. This is just a backbone. We will see where the conversation takes us, as is the case with any of these interviews, whatever we fancy and are interested in talking about, we will be talking about. We shoot for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, but if you have seen any of these other interviews before, they may take a whole lot longer. All right, did I introduce you well, Michael?
Well enough, I guess.
All right. Am I putting you on the spot when I ask you to introduce yourself to, let's say, a group of people, men and women, who seek to become better with the opposite sex, who want to become more magnificent in the way they interact with the other?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't realize, though, that we were doing this interview for YouTube, like publicly on YouTube. So, you know, there's there's a part of my life that's been more public, that has been more like a lot of people who've come and participated in my work to date. Many people have had profound spiritual experiences. Many people have found God and religion as a result of my work. And, you know, people, a lot of times people have their own way of relating to spirituality or religion or values and things like this. And so if you give them some kind of experience like that, then they have all these expectations that they put on you. But my work has never been explicitly about spirituality or religion. In fact, it's really neither of those for me. But I've tended to limit what people kind of see of me in the public sphere, because I don't want, you know, my more wild side to, I guess, interfere with or tarnish people, you know, color people's I guess impression of me before they experience, you know, the honor work, which is really profound, really powerful, and has saved marriages and made a huge difference for people. So, but I'm at a point in my life now where I really want to integrate all aspects of myself. I don't want to be holding back one side of me for some reason. I really want to be fully alive, and it's the message I want to bring to people, and especially to men. Just an invitation to fully embrace all of who we are, and just honor our full aliveness. So I guess from the perspective of like men and women with a relationship, I mean, I've had a very long journey with this. I've worked with men and women in relationship. Yeah, my own journey is, I mean, it's something that fascinates me to no end, is the dynamics between people and the dynamics that we have, you know, inside of our own mind relating to ourselves. So, you know, there's yeah, I guess by way of introducing myself, I guess that's enough for right now.
Well, I would like to know a little bit more. Like, where were you born? How were you when you were growing up? What was your relationship with women, and how did that affect, let's say, your work and what you're doing right now, what you're exploring right now? So it doesn't have to be long, but whatever you think is relevant in that story to come to the point or to come to the work that you have done or are doing right now.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very strict religious environment, almost you know, a cult-like environment, where, you know, we believed we were God's chosen people, saved for the last days of the world. And in fact, I mean, and even my family in particular, like, I grew up believing like I was one of God's chosen few, saved for the last days of the world. I had a very special mission to fulfill in the end of days. And you know, what we do in this life holds ultimate importance. It's gonna determine the rest of eternity, what we do in this life. So, and what we do in this life, like, the only things that really matter are from a spiritual context, from the context of like walking that straight and narrow path. And everything is in God's eyes. God knows all your thoughts. He knows your feelings. He knows your deeds, everything. So, and the things of the material world, you know, the world of, you know, where there's dating and sex and money and all this stuff, none of that was as important as what you know, are you following God's commandments, God's path for you? Are you being righteous, you know, walking that righteous path? So that was my reality growing up. And, you know, and everything. And I would grow up Mormon, by the way. And in the Mormon religion, there's a really profound relationship that you learn to develop between a feeling in your heart, which you relate to as like, it's like revelation. It's like what they would call the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit speaking to you. So you learn to cultivate this relationship with your inner, your heart, your it's a feeling, so you can pray and you can get a feeling that will actually tell you what the truth is, or what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And so you learn to pay really special, close attention to this. And to the extent that you go away from this, you lose touch with this feeling. And to the extent that you cultivate it, and you listen to it, and you honor it, this feeling develops. And so for me, everything growing up that had to do with sex or nudity, or a lot of things that are really interesting to a young boy and a young man growing up, just naturally, these things were kind of taboo. These things are really taboo. They're off limits. And I, my parents actually put me in private school when I was in sixth grade, which is right, like just as you're kind of entering puberty and all this, and and then I was put back in public school. And when I was put back in public school, I'd hear kids on the bus talking about, using words that I would never use, and having conversations about sex and everything else that was just, I couldn't even go there. It's like I didn't have, not only it's like I didn't have an authority, it was just like I didn't feel right in going there. But it also was apparent to me that they had access to a whole world of exploration and activity that I didn't. And I was fascinated, I was intrigued by that, but that world was off limits to me. So at the same time, what was interesting is like the stories I grew up with. If you look into the story of the founding of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith is an individual, very charismatic man, pioneered a whole movement, a whole religion, and he took them from one state to the next, and they actually built their own army to fight with the U.S. government, and they developed their own ways and beliefs and everything. And he had many, many wives and many women drawn to him and attracted to him. And if you look up the story of the Mormon religion, you'll see, he was with girls who were 14, 15, 16, on up. And the guy had his way with the ladies, and even after he died, he had many, I think even married women married themselves in the temple to him. So when they go to, a lot of people don't know this about the Mormon religion, but it wasn't just a religion of polygamy. It was also a religion where, like, many Mormon women married themselves to other Mormon men, such as the prophet, while they were still married to their existing husbands. I think that's accurate. So you had it going both ways. It's a fascinating history, but I had these icons in my just as I'm a child, and I'm hearing these stories. And another one was my great grandfather, who had 10 wives and 55 children. He took his family across Comanche territory at the height of the Comanche Empire. This was like the most fearsome Indian tribe who ruled the Midwest. And he took them across this place, and then they settled this part of Utah. And he was an entrepreneur. His children and his wives worked for him. He settled this wild territory. So I grew up with these stories of my ancestors and my people and all this, where they were cowboys, they were pioneers, they were explorers, they were founders of new tribes of people, and all of this. But yet the reality that I lived in every day was public school, and a religion that had become very bureaucratic. And it wasn't like the early religion where everyone's receiving kind of divine revelation, and they're fighting with the Indians and the U.S. government, and it's the Wild West and like all of this. And so and at the same time, like the movies that we were allowed to watch were like the Disney movies and Hollywood movies like Star Wars, where it's all about these heroes who live these really adventurous lives, and so that was juxtaposed with me with my everyday world that I was being invited into. And even my own grandfathers, they were, you know, they were cowboys and entrepreneurs and self-made men, and you know, but you know, my father was a dentist, and even though he was an entrepreneur, it was kind of this very kind of set and structured life and reality. And so I had this juxtaposition between this really kind of narrow world that I was allowed to behave inside of, and all these fantasies and legends and dreams of like what my future would or should or could be, even including the Mormon one, which foretold of great battles to come in the end of days, which I was supposedly preparing for. You know, so I think a lot of that had to do with the life I'm living now. And, you know, this all, my father left home when I was 14. My parents got divorced. And, you know, to really just respect my parents and their privacy, I'm not going to talk about their personal lives, but what
By the
became
way,
really
Michael,
apparent.
just so you know, this will be an unlisted YouTube link. So only people who get the link will be able to see it. And just don't know how that informs what you want to disclose.
Okay.
I wanted you to know.
Okay, thank you, Hans. Yeah, so my parents, you know, I mean, up until 14, I was like, I just believed we knew the truth, and my parents are teaching me the one and final truth, and there's one way. And then I began to realize, as my parents basically went to war with each other in the divorce, and family members, adult family members took side on the extended family, and religious leaders took sides, and I just began to kind of see the shadow side, the side of these adults in my life who I'd respected and revered, that there was a difference between what they were telling me to do and telling me was the truth and the way, and how they were living their lives. And so I really started questioning authority. It's like, wait a second, am I going to carve out my entire life and make all these sacrifices with this life on earth? And these guys, it doesn't seem they don't have it all figured out. And I was really curious about that. But it was, you feel guilty in that religion, questioning, even having a clear thought of doubt in your mind about the religion, because then you feel guilt in a sense of like you're betraying this heavenly Father who's guiding you and who's saving you and who's protecting you every day. And so it was like I couldn't really confront the reality of my situation. I couldn't really confront my own inner thoughts and feelings and the reality outside. So I was living in this vague, I don't know, this cloud, I guess. And it all came to a head when I guess I'm just kind of going off on a tangent with my life story, but I say, just to finish the thought here, it all came to a head one day when I was supposed to go on a 2-year Mormon mission. Every righteous young Mormon man serves that mission when he turns 19. And about a year had passed, and I hadn't decided one way or the other. I hadn't said yes or no. And I was just increasingly had this kind of cloud of shame and guilt like hanging over my head, you know, because all of my uncles, all of my my grandfathers, my dad, everyone, they all were these like righteous Mormon men. And I was the oldest grandson on one side of many grandchildren, the second oldest grandson on the other side. And so like what I did even brought shame or honor to my father and my family, and, you know, but one day I just decided, you know what, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to face every thought that I have. I'm going to follow my thoughts. I'm going to write verbally down, and like God can see it. Anyone can see it. I'm just, from question to answer, I'm just going to follow my own thinking. And hours went by, And at the end, I was really following two questions that were like a contradiction that I had to confront. And at the end of the day, I realized I had to verbally state my position so that God could hear it clearly. Like I didn't want any more hiding, any more avoiding. And so I went into the kitchen. It was evening. It was like nighttime by this point. And I remember turning on the light because like I wanted to be in the light. I wanted to be seen. And then I verbalized it out loud. So there was no mistaking God can hear me, you know? And I verbalized my doubt in the Mormon faith. Like, and it was just something like, at this point in time, I can't say I'm Mormon. I don't have like faith or belief that the Mormon church is true. I don't know. It was just that. And for me, it was like the most courageous act of my life. And
you were alone in the house, alone in the kitchen?
I was alone, yeah. But God is always, he knows and sees and
there was no family around.
No. And I was living by myself at the time. Or maybe I had a roommate, but he wasn't there. And the next thought that hit me was, well, based on the same thinking process, am I Christian? And based on the same logic, I had to verbalize that I can't say that I am. The next thought that hit me, which was the scariest of all, was like, my God, do I believe in God? Like, holy shit, do I believe in God? And then by the same logic, I had to verbalize that. And then when I did it, I realized like, I've just entered a territory that I've never entered before. I've never dared to even really confront this question before. And I remember looking out the window to kind of like imagine a world where maybe there's not a God. And I remember squinting, and then I realized I'm squinting because I'm just seeing what's reflected from inside the kitchen. I can't see outside. And for me, it was this huge metaphor, right? Like I'm trying to imagine this other reality, but all I can see is what I know to date. And so I turned off the light, and then I could see there were stars outside, there were trees, but like I had this desire, you know, like I want to go out there. So I went out and I opened the door and I walked out into the street, and it was like the colors and the sounds were like richer than I'd ever heard them before, because I was in this new reality where I was like in wonder. I didn't have these conclusions about reality. I had this curiosity and wonder. And it was like I still saw beauty in the world, even imagining a world that didn't operate with this God, the God who has a hand in every single thing that happens. Mm-hmm. I previously had imagined like God is making every blade of grass grow. He is like directing everything. And I got to the end of this street. I need to back up for a second, because my father had told me that the way that you can know that the Mormon church is true is you read the Book of Mormon, which is like the premier Mormon text, and then you pray and you ask God if it's true. And if it is, you'll have this warm feeling in your heart, warm, peaceful feeling will fill your heart. And if not, you'll have feelings of doubt and everything else. And logically, it didn't make sense to me, because I reasoned, if I pray to this Heavenly Father who I've been praying to all my life, I had this relationship with, and I begin to doubt him and his existence and it's this Mormon, and it's not just a God, it's a Mormon God who has kept me safe, protected me, guided me. And I begin to even have thoughts of doubt in him. I'm going to feel guilt. I'm going to feel like not powerful inside. But if I'm praying and I'm having thoughts of affirming his existence and everything else, I'm going to naturally have a warm feeling in my heart, like a feeling of being loyal, a feeling of honoring this being, this man, this individual I've had a relationship with. So to me, it was like, that's not a good indicator for me of it, if the church is true or not. And so I got to the end of the street, Hans, and I stood there and I just was still, And I just noticed I had this peace in my heart, and I had this warmth in my heart. And I was like, wow, I've just questioned and doubted and verbalized my doubt. And yet I have this warmth, peaceful feeling in my heart, and this powerful feeling in myself.
That you thought before, I can only have that when praying to God.
Yes, yes. And it's like a Mormon thing. It's like a Mormon spiritual feeling, like the Holy Spirit speaking to me. And so I became curious, like, what is this feeling I'm feeling, you know? And I started, and over the years, I started following it immediately. I just started letting it be a guide in my life. And it's what I later came to call honor. Like, I named it honor. And I identified it. It's a feeling that one feels when you, in the face of your fears, your doubts, whatever you feel, you make a stand for yourself, your life, your people, your values. Then this feeling is present, and it's a fundamental dynamic about how human guidance, how human consciousness works. And it's not, no religion owns it, no belief system owns it, no guru owns it. It's available to all of us. And and this became such a powerful thing in my life. And I started, like, I was on this path of, now I'm in the unknown now, and I'm learning. And this is one of the things that I'm seeking out, is this understanding of this force of guidance in my life. Mm-hmm. And over the years, it became a fundamental part of the work that I do and the work that I share with people. In fact, I have people take on that, like, honor, this force of honor, this feeling in their heart is a birthright. And I invite them to reclaim it. And sometimes I've just done, like, there's teleseminars I've done online that might still be on the internet somewhere, where you can hear me just introducing the concept of the force of honor to people. And that's what the call is all about. And people break down in tears, you know, people who have not had this relationship to themselves, this feeling, this fundamental positive feeling. You could almost say self-love, you know, but in a very pure way, you know. I don't know how to say it, but so yeah, honor has been a powerful force in my life, but so too has this desire, you know, this curiosity. And in fact, it was actually that conflict that brought to a head my conversation with God that day, because it was like, wait a second, am I going to give up 2 prime years of my life, 19 to 21, based on someone else's idea that I should go on a mission and that I should do this honorable thing in the eyes of my people and my tribe, serve this mission? And, like, I didn't want even give up my whole life. Am I going to give up my whole life because of what someone else thinks is the right thing for me to do? And it was like, no, I want to live, you know, and I want to have the kind of adventure and full life that that my ancestors and these legends and these Hollywood heroes had, you know. So there's this conflict between desire and honor. This world that these boys in high school lived in, where they were going on dates and they were with women and all this, like, that was like, for me, that was this cut off world. Like, I would see a beautiful girl that I really wanted to be with, and I had these romantic ideals and notions, whatever, but I had no facility to enter this kind of, like, that world was like off limits to me, you know. Because I was so in that spiritual kind of bubble, you could say. So yeah, I had a desire to explore that world, and that world of women, and but not just women, that whole world of where it's like, if you're going to be really, really righteous, you're not going to go anywhere near that world where people who are, you know, maybe doing who knows what, you know. So and
so
I'll wrap up.
20 now. You're 19, 20 now, and you're like not going on that Mormon mission, but you're ready to explore desire and adventure and romance, right?
Yeah. And yeah. And actually there was I was extremely shy. Socially, I was extremely shy. Like in high school, if like one of the popular kids in class turned to me and said something to me or whatever, like I might turn just like beet red. So my approach to social situations was like avoid them, you know? And like you would find me like in high school, I might, you know, when I got my car and I got my license, I would go out and I would go out at night and I would drive around and I would want to interact with people socially, but all I could do was be seen in my cool car. You know, it's like I had no facility to make the connection, to connect with people socially, to tell a story, to ask a girl out, to anything. That was like, that world was cut off from me, you know, and girls liked me. Like I was a cute boy, you know.
What happened with you?
It was like, what's that?
I said, you said I was a cute boy. I said, what happened with you?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, my game was limited to like trying to look cool, you know, that was it. That was my game, you know? And, I had so many missed opportunities through my teen years and my early 20s. I mean, so many opportunities that just frustrated the hell out of me. It was like any young man's dream for like hot women, hot girls. Like I had them, like they were like presenting themselves to me, you know, like I had something good. There was something about the way I was and how I looked or whatever that drew these amazingly hot women to me. But I could not close the deal. Like it wasn't even like I couldn't, like I had so many stories of even like I'd take them to bed, you know, and then I wouldn't close the deal. They want me to, and they're excited and they want me to, and I'd leave, you know. It was like I wasn't just frustrated. I was leaving them frustrated. But I want to go back in I'll be remiss if I don't share this about my childhood, because this became a huge, I guess, like secret or something I came to rely upon. And it was, you know, if I think back to like third grade, I remember I have this story of me and my neighborhood friend, and we're sitting in third grade, and there's this fat girl in class, you know.
Third grade, what?
And she had got up. It's like I'm 8 years old, maybe.
Okay.
You know, and I'm about to be baptized, or maybe I've just been baptized, which is like when you're really kind of enter into this, you know, you're committed to the church and all this, and it's like when the time you know right from wrong, right? And I'm 8 years old or 7 years old, something like this, and my friend sitting next to me, you know, the little fat girl, she was like kind of the teacher's pet, you know, blah blah blah, and you know, I mean, I was not the kind of, I was about as opposite you could get from the teacher's pet. But so he dares me. He's like, you know, like, what would happen if we put this tack on her chair? Like, when she sits down, maybe she'll deflate. Like, all the air will go out. And so he dared me. It's like, dare me to put the pin on, you know, the tack on her chair. And I mean, that, I guess part of that's just my personality. You know, I put the tack on her chair. And then she comes and sits down. I mean, for little boys, it was really funny, you know. She sat there for a moment, and then she got up really slowly, and she like, took the tack out, and then she went and told the teacher. And I don't know, somehow everyone knew that it was us, me and my buddy. And the teacher, third grade teacher, called us before the class. And she was like, you know, and I was the one that did it, you know. And she's like, Michael, what were you thinking? You know, why did you do this? And I had no words. There was nothing. I'm like, I had no words. And so my little buddy, he spoke up for me. he said something for me, and she's like, you know, I'm talking to Michael, like, cat got your tongue, whatever. But that was kind of that gives you an insight into my personality. Like, I would take the dare, but I had no way to verbally interact whatsoever. And I was just kind of like secretly rebelling against, you know, whatever. And at about that age, we lived in the South, on Rolling Road. It was named after, you know, the day and age when there was plantations, and it was like this 3-story house with a basement and an attic. So like a 5-story house with a big carriage house out back, and these huge pine trees. And when I felt like escaping this very confined world, I would climb these pine trees, and I would, you know, like, they were so tall, they would even extend beyond this 5-story house. And I'm like this 7 or 8-year-old kid, and I'm climbing these pine trees. You know, I get up to where it's the pine tree is so, the trunk is so thin that I'm blowing in the wind, you know, and I'm hanging on. But I wanted to get higher than the house, and I wanted to see beyond this world. I wanted to see, like, as far as I could, you know. And I just, like, imagining, I don't know, adventure, you know. And and there was really two men in my life that I looked up to as kind of like, I don't know, like, I want to be like that, or they intrigued me. And one was my maternal grandfather. And when I was 10 years old, he was an entrepreneur, and he had many children and grandchildren. And he decided he was going to fly all of us to Mazatlan, Mexico for a family reunion. This is like, I don't know how many people this was at this time. There, 50 people, 60 people, maybe more. He's got buying tickets, round trip tickets for all of us, paying for our hotels, paying for our meals, you know? And this is my grandfather, right? So he flies us out there, and then we go on only the men, you know, only the men and boys. We go on a wild fishing expedition out on the open seas in this big fishing boat, and it was just our family. And you know, we're fishing for these sea monsters, you know, with fucking long fucking spike coming out of the front of the thing, and huge fin, and they're like 10 feet long, you know, and we caught one, and it took maybe 4 hours. My uncles they're each taking their turns wrestling with this great sea monster. And finally, at the end, my father was given the honor of being the last one, the final whatever. And we get this fucking beast on board. And it was like this, I don't know, for a 10-year-old, it was like this epic adventure, you know? And it was my grandfather who made all this happen. And meanwhile, my dad, which I really loved, and I love this about my dad and about the Mormon church, is that they really honor, you know, you could say, like, in most of the Western world today, we've lost rites and rituals and paths for men to gain authority and to become someone for their people, and all this thing, and sacred spaces just for men and just for women. That not so with the Mormon church. Like, there's all of that built into it. And so we did all these things that were just men and boys, and it was incredible. And when my parents divorced and they split up when I was 14, I would go out, and it's like, without this man, I don't know what would have become with my life if I hadn't had these times with my grandfather. And he's, you know, he viewed me as a city kid, right? I lived in the country back east, but in his world, because he's living in Utah, he's a cowboy, he's a wild man, you know. For in his view, I'm a city boy, you know, city kid. And so, like, I wanted to prove myself to him, you know. I wanted to be a man in his eyes. And he taught the way that I do teach now for boys and young men. And that's just to, like, lay down a challenge and let the guy be with it. And even this one time, actually, Okay. So this one morning, I don't know if it was Saturday morning, whatever, but he comes and wakes me up, gets me out of bed. He's like, let's go, we got work to do. Get your butt out of bed. And he takes me out to the farm. He's got a farm behind his house. And my job is we've got to separate the baby lambs from the mother sheep, and it was epic because I'm like 13, 14, right? Just coming of age. And it's, I don't know if he had this stuff planned, but the stuff he gave me to do was epic. So, and once we separate, and then the mothers are crying, they're crying, and the babies are crying for their mothers, right? And my job was to grab each one of these lambs one by one and hold them down, hold their legs. Meanwhile, if it's a boy lamb, he's slicing open their ball sack, right? And then sticking his teeth in, biting the testicles, stretching it out, cutting it with his knife, and then burning it with his iron, right? And I can smell the flesh. And then he cuts off the tail and he burns the flesh of the tail. And then and I'm holding the lamb down, right? And then I put the lamb back out through the window to its mother, right? And one by one we went and did that. After we finished with that, he takes me to this sheep. Its head had been, cut off. It's hanging upside down, dripping blood, right? And he hands me his buck knife. He says, I want you to skin it and gut it, and then come and get me when you're done. And he walked away. He just walked away. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but like, here's an epic challenge. I was like, man, I do this. I mean, I wasn't thinking this verbally, but it's like, I do this, and I'm a man. I'm a cowboy. I'm a whatever. My grandfather's eyes, and it was awesome. And then I'll relate this. Like, we'd be driving, like home from church or whatever, just me and him in the truck, and he's doing real estate deals all over Utah. He's a self-made man. And in his basement was like, you walk into this one room and it's like nothing but like the heads of all these great beasts that he's killed. In fact, that was in almost every room. Yeah, with his gun or his bow and arrow or whatever. And the smell of just the musky smell is like, this is a den. This is a man's place. This is like the place for a great adventure. You walk into another room and he's got all these maps and blueprints laid out of like places where he's gonna take over the territory. He's gonna build his own structures and all this. And it's like, that was my grandfather, and it was just like this, like it's like an invitation to be like, I want to be like that, and he would stop. We'd be driving like home from church, whatever, it didn't matter. He'd see some prairie dogs, these little animals that'll like stick their heads up out of the hole, He'd stop and he'd grab the gun, the rifle, and he'd roll, tell me to roll down the window. He'd be like, see if you can get a shot at a gun, But like, that was my grandfather's way of teaching. Oh, I almost forgot this. And there was another time, I was 14 years old, driving with him down the highway. He's like, you want to learn to drive, son? I mean, in my part of the world, in the East Coast, you don't drive until you're 16. On the West, out in farm country, if you live and work on the farm, you can drive on the farm if you're 14. Well, this is on open highway, right? He's like, you want to learn to drive? And he was a Mormon and all this. In fact, he was a bishop. He had authority in the Mormon church, but he was completely different from like how my father and whatever did the church. So I was like, fuck yeah, I want to learn how to drive, So he pulls into this church parking lot. He gets out, puts me in the drive, around, gear shift and all that, going around the parking lot. After a while, I kind of got it. He's like, all right, hit the highway. It's like, that's my grandfather, And so he's riding shotgun. And so we take off onto the highway. Now it's a country highway. It's not like a 5-lane city highway or something, right? But that's where I learned to drive. So the story that I really wanted to tell about my grandfather, and we go up into the mountains. It's me and I think 2 of my sisters and a couple more cousins. And he's just taking us and a bunch of horses up into the mountains for a week. And the very first day, you know, we get all the horses and we walk them down to the creek to get something to drink. And, you know, they get their drink, all that. And there was this one horse that I had kind of attached myself to, and it was the biggest, youngest horse. And, you know, now at this point they've got full bellies and they're walking them back to camp. And I'm like, my grandfather can tell, like, I want to stay with my horse. Like, I can't remember what I said. I'm probably saying, hey, my horse isn't done feeding or whatever, you know? And he's like, all right, Michael, stay with the horse. But whatever you do, he's like, this horse has never been ridden bareback. And right now it's bareback, right? This horse has never been ridden bareback. It's young and it's got a full belly. And the last thing you want to do is ride a horse when it's got a full belly, let alone one that's it hasn't been broken in, right? Now, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll walk. You know, he said, you have to walk it back. So I said, okay, you know, deal. Of course, in my mind, like, my head is full of like all these Hollywood movies of like, you know, cowboys and Indians and like, you know, a real cowboy, he breaks in the wild horse and all this. So now I didn't think about it this way then, but since I've started writing my story and everything, like, I thought about this and I was like, my grandfather, he knew me by that point. I was the one grandson who like he had this little go-kart, and I would take the go-kart into his pasture where all his sheep were, and I would be driving the go-kart and then try to launch myself from the go-kart onto the back of a sheep. You know, it's like, that's who he knew me. He knew me. So he had to know when he left me with that horse. He had to know what I was going to do. And even if not, he was willing to trust me with it. Like, that was his way of teaching.
Yes, and he didn't want to spoil it by saying you can't do it or whatever, you know?
Like, he wasn't going to sit there and micromanage me.
Yes, exactly.
He was going to trust me to make my own decision and learn the hard way if I needed to. And so, sure enough, as soon as they took my uncle, my sisters, my cousins, and whatever, they're gone. They're like a little bit gone. I'm like, and I got like, I'm next to this huge beast, man. And I mean, I've never broken in a horse or anything like this. Like, you feel its heartbeat and its breath and it's the warmth of its belly, you know, and it's bigger than me, you know, it's taller than me. There's no way I can get myself onto this horse. So I bring myself over to this big boulder, you know, and it's got reins. And I'm holding on to the reins, but there's no saddle. And, you know, I'm going to ride this motherfucker, you know? And I just do it. I launch myself onto the back of this beast and I fucking hang on, you know? Well, that thing, it was having none of that. It immediately bucked, you know? Hind legs up higher than its back, right? And I just went somersaulting over its head into the air, landed crooked on a rock, broke my ankle. I found out later my ankle was broke clean in half. And man, I went wailing and hopping on one leg back to camp. And my grandfather was pissed, you know, because he told me not to do it. And he refused to end the trip early. We stayed up there the whole week. I could do nothing. I had to sit there with my broken ankle. And, you know, he was a man's man. He was a hard teacher. He was like, son, you know, like, he's the cowboy and I'm not listening to him. So I have to learn what I have to learn. When I ended up getting home from that trip, like a month later, my mom took me to the hospital. My ankle was broke clean through. She was so pissed. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, like, that's the kind of challenge that's the kind of like education I respond to. In public school, I rejected homework. I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to do anything that someone thought I should learn. So now, let's say I'm 19, right? And the world's before me. Like, you know, this leap of kind of faith or whatever that I'd taken with this horse. I also did this when I dared to write my thoughts down and then confront God, right? So this just kind of became my way of, like, in the face of my fears, heading into unknown territory. is just like, that's kind of what I relied upon. And I still do it to this day.
Who was that's great, you know, great insight into your world and your upbringing. You said there were two men that were, if I heard it well, they were examples for you. So you got your grandfather, and who was the other?
My other was one of his sons, my Uncle Mark on my mom's side. And I mean, they were the two that were most strongly compelling me to be like them, let's say. And he was like my grandfather. He was even more than my grandfather. He was a serial entrepreneur, but he was always hunting, fishing, and golfing. Always hunting, fishing, and golfing. He had 30 businesses. When he died, he had 30 businesses, and everyone else ran the businesses for him. He didn't. I remember going to get lunch with him one time. I went to Utah, and I was an adult. I don't know, I was in my 30s or something. And he died early, but I went to have lunch with him and his beautiful young wife, because he'd remarried. And actually, I really want to know what his life was like now. Like, it's kind of too late to really find out. I don't know how many people really know his life story, like the other side. But we went to have lunch, and he was telling me about how they just hired one of these young, smart guys with a BMA or something like that. He didn't even know what the letters were. MBA, right? Masters of Business Administration. Like, he had 30 businesses. He was worth, I think he was worth over $30 million when he passed away. And that was just, you know, it was just normal. And it was a great gift growing up with all my uncles, almost all my uncles and my grandfathers being self-made entrepreneurs. It was a huge, huge gift, because I never expected anything less of myself. I never expected myself to get a job. So it was a huge blessing, really. So Mike, okay, let me bring it full circle to I'm 19, right? So I've really, in a lot of ways, been given this great foundation, this connection to spirits, to inner authority, this connection to elders and men and my grandfathers. And I feel like, advantages that so many young men in today's world don't have. But then at 14, like, it was ripped out from under me. And then I was left with doubt and confusion and distrust of authority. And I no longer know which way is the correct way and what the truth is and all this. And my family is torn to shreds, and we're all in conflict and suffering. And now I'm like, and the decisions I make now at 19, I feel like could have eternal ramifications, because if I don't walk the straight and narrow path, I could end up in hell for eternity, versus I could end up in the highest kingdom of God for eternity. So it's like, it's important. What I do now is really important. And that's where I was at 19.
And you decided not to go on your 2-year mission.
I didn't go, and as soon as I rejected, I also left university because it was not for me. And I was always having these entrepreneurial ideas during my first year in university. So in all these ways, I left the beaten path. I had run away from home at 17. I finished my senior high school out west with my relatives. It's a whole other story. But so I'd left home, I'd left my family, I left my religion, I left the path of going to school and university. And all of a sudden, I felt this huge excitement to learn, well, what is the truth? What is my mission? What is it? What should I do? What is the world about? I had this huge curiosity and desire to just understand everything. And that became a number one priority in my life, was to find answers, find direction. And as I started to I really felt like I was finding some powerful answers. I went back for my brothers. And this is, with my honor work, this is, men looking to find honor. I can lay down some really clear, powerful things to, like, bring honor into their life. And one of them is like, is to look at the men who've come back for you, right? They could have gone on with their life. They could have left you behind, but they came back for you. You know, find them, recognize that they did that, honor them. And the second thing is now walk in that path in their footsteps. Go back for your younger brothers. Go back for your friends. Go back for other men. And it's a really powerful way to bring honor and brotherhood into your life, which are so powerful in a world where we're like, especially in America, we're so separated. We separate ourselves from our ancestors. We separate ourselves from our parents. We don't want to associate, even as teenagers, we don't want to associate with adults. There's all, America's about separation in so many ways. And we have our strengths because of that. We can be really individual and creative and pioneers and stuff like that. There's strengths, but the weaknesses is the disconnection. We're cut off from our ancestors and our elders and our fathers and our ways of honor and our tribe, and like all these things we're cut off from. So brotherhood and honor can be reclaimed by going back to your brother. So as Hans, I know I'm just kind of going off here, but this is I'm so excited to, in fact, I view this interview as a way to come back for my brothers, because there's young men who listen to this, and I feel a lot of honor, to feel a lot of honor. I feel, I tear up, but I feel like for me, there's so much honor in going back for young men who maybe have no older men in their life who they look up to, admire, or trust, and to go back for them and to bring them along, and to be that for them that other people have been for me. So that's why I'm so excited to share all this right now. But my brother Dave, he was 19. He was in university. He's just partying, drinking. He's not doing anything in university. He goes out one summer to live with my dad on his new ranch in Arizona. And he's like working on this open land to build a ranch. And he's writing me letters. This is back before email and the internet. So it's 1994, summer of 1994. And he's writing me letters like, Mike, Dad keeps preaching to me, wants me to go on a mission. He's like, what do I do? He's like, help, Mike, help. So it's like, I got the bat signal, it's like, no, like I want my brother to make his own choice. He's fine, whatever he does, but I don't want him to lock himself into that path because someone else has all these pressures and expectations for him.
Right.
And so it's like I'm going to go be with my brother. I'm just going to, and I dropped everything.
How old are you
I
now?
got in my truck and I put a camper on the back and I drove. I would have been 23. So I drive from Austin, Texas to Arizona to just be with my brother. And I know my dad I think my dad was really not happy to see me just show up, but I showed up and I went out to work with my brother on the ranch every day. And I have a lot of respect for my brother, really fucking hard worker. And he was waking up, just getting my ass up like before 6 a.m. And we'd throw down a breakfast and drive out in my dad's truck to the ranch and work in the Arizona sun for like 12 hours straight. And then we get done, we drive home, we go eat a quick dinner, and then it was off to the gym, 2-hour weightlifting workout at the gym. And we get home from the gym and we do some kind of martial arts or go for a run. I mean, it was fucking intense, and my brother's badass in that way. And so we spent the summer doing this, and I just got to be with my brother, just basically letting him know he's fucking fine as he is, And I won't tell much. Okay, I'll finish the summer off this way. My brother had a dream to go at the end of the summer. He would talk about it every day. He wanted to go to California. He wanted to go to California. He wanted to see the ocean. He wanted to go to California. So End of the summer comes. He's got like 2 weeks before he's got to be back at school. And he saved up a little money working for my dad. And we take off in my truck with the camper on the back, you know. And so we're going, and he's driving across like Arizona, California desert. And my truck starts, it's early on a Saturday morning. My truck starts going clank, clank. And then it starts getting louder and faster. And my brother's like, fuck. His dream is disappearing before his eyes. We're not going to make it to California. You know, he's freaking out. And we can't find a mechanic anywhere on a Saturday morning. And I'm like, you know, and this is another thing, like that, like if I'm speaking to young men, you know, like you have to know yourself. You have to come to know yourself as the guy who's going to get across the fucking line. You have to, it's fundamental, you know? And I'm like, brother, relax. No matter fucking what happens, we're going to get our ass to that beach. And I did not stop driving that truck to wait for a mechanic. I was like, we're making. So anyway, we keep going and it's getting louder. Clank, clank, clank. And it's ridiculous. You know, it's ridiculous. Like the truck's going down and I don't care. We're getting to the fucking beach for my brother, you know? And just as we managed to pull in along the Pacific Coast Highway, we park in this parking spot. And we spend like 10 days at the beach, you know, and it was epic. And I didn't drive my truck the whole time. And at the end, I drive my brother to the airport and I'm driving back from the airport. And as I get turn on the Pacific Coast Highway again, the entire drive shaft falls out of my truck onto the street. You know? This is the part of the thing that links the motor to the wheels, you know, it just falls onto the street. And I just pulled right into an open parking spot and then camped out in my camper for like another several weeks. But like, so I came back for my brother, right? And these things like, it's powerful to know yourself as a man who is going to come back for your brothers, who's going to be there for your family, for your people, to know yourself and for your people to know you, that like, if the shit hits the fan, Michael's going to fucking show up. He's going to be there. Right. Like there's so much honor in that and pride and power for yourself and also for your people and how they know you. So even in the extreme, doing these things that are, I mean, fucking giving up the drive shaft in your truck. I don't know if I ever got that thing fixed. I can't remember. But the truck went down for my brother, you know? And I've done a lot of things like that in my life. In fact, if you map out the trajectory, I spent the last 9 years as a nomad. But if you map out the trajectory of those 9 years in my travels, many of those travels that I made, I bought one-way tickets to go back for a brother, either a biological brother or another young man who I viewed as my brother, to show up for them in a time when they really needed it. And yeah, I feel a lot of honor in that, you know. But that's what guides a lot of my life, is that. And another share their stories. My other biological brother, he's 16. He's in high school. All of his other siblings, except one of my sisters, there were 6 of us. They've all left home except the sister who's about his age. He's the baby in the family. My mom is like stopped being a mother. She's like, she's just had enough, you know. She's going through a difficult time. He's hanging out with the wrong crowd. He's shooting BB guns at school buses. He's bringing knives to school. He has no father in the home. He has no older brother in the home. His father left, then I left, and his other older brother left. And it's like his story about men is like they leave, right? It was the same story for my other brother. It's another reason why it's so fucking powerful in today's day and age, because so many men have that story about men, that they're not there, that they don't show up, that they can't count on them. It's so powerful to be that for them. And, you know, by the way, I mean, you know, you mentioned I came to your experience in Malaga. Well, I connected with you online. I connected to you as a brother. It's like I went at least as much to experience your event to just fucking show up for you, you know?
Right.
Like I felt you as a brother. Like and it's how I am now. Like you mentioned, I'm mentoring you. I'm not mentoring you for money. Like I'm mentoring you because I believe in you and I love what you're doing for men and I want to support that. And it's just like honor is like this huge thing that guides my life, you know, as well as desire. Right? But so my brother's out, and my brother's like, he's going to school every day and I'm talking to him. He comes out one summer, he's 16 and he comes out and he's just like, man, he's getting feedback every day in school that he's a loser and he's a failure. And I every day he shows up, that's the feedback he's getting. And I feel that age is so important, 16, 17, 18. This when you're starting to figure out, you're starting to answer the question, who am I? Right? And that's the answer he was getting every day. I'm a loser, I'm a fuck up, and I'm a failure. And but meanwhile, he was like he's actually providing for himself. He's selling newspapers during the evenings. It's like this one redeeming thing he was doing. Because anyway. I recognize like if he tries to stay in school, he could end up believing that about himself. And I was like, fuck no. And I said, John, look, you can sell. You can sell. You're good with people, you know, come out and live with me. Fuck high school. You know, I'll show you what you need to make your way in the world as a man. And I came out with this Rottweiler, this huge Rottweiler. We lived in this tiny efficiency apartment. All three of us, we were talking about business ideas. I helped him get some business ideas going and all this kind of stuff. I got him, we started running every morning, running down the drag in Austin, Texas. And we were looking at these people going to school. Between me and him, we were laughing at them. Like, we're entrepreneurs. These people, they're following the yellow brick road. We're making our own path, I respect people who go to university. I don't want to act like I don't, but it was like, that was what we were proud of, and now years later, the story goes much more, but over the last few years, my brother has built a few 8-figure businesses. This is businesses doing in tens of millions of dollars, and like the middle to high tens of millions of dollars. He's done all the work. He's done the hard work, but I feel honored that I gave him that foundation, right, that reflection back to him of who he is as an entrepreneur, as a man, as someone who can make his way in the world, and he doesn't need anyone else,
That's great, man. And first of all, yes, I feel very honored and I feel very strong, because you showed up. I have these experiences when great women show up in my life, and it's on rare occasions, and it's enough to know that you're doing the right thing. And when you showed up and the way we connected and the way we're connecting and the stories that we have now, it's very affirming to me, and I'm very grateful for it. I would like to before we because I really I've been checking the work that you've done decades ago almost now, and the power of vision and honor and rituals and taking a stand, and how we can apply that to business, but also say the way we are with women. But before we go into that, I would like to catch up between, say, 20 and now, and your relationship with women, how that has been in say the past 2 decades, how that has evolved.
All right. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, at 19, all I could do was I was dressing like James Dean. I had my jeans and the holes in my pants and my white t-shirt and my brown leather jacket and my long blonde hair and my blue eyes, and my kind of my thing was in being kind of this mysterious kind of rebel type, that was my thing. That was my shtick. And it on one level it worked pretty well for me, but I could not talk to women. I couldn't. And I remember and 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 okay, I'm just trying to think. We're not quite sure the order of things here, but one winter I went back for Christmas, and I was probably around 23, probably around 23, something like this. And I go back for Christmas, and I go out New Year's Eve with my sister, my older sister Lisa, who was kind of a maniac at the time, downtown Baltimore, and we would just kind of go to these clubs downtown Baltimore. It was great, and she was always like in high school. She was really popular with the guys. She was hot. She was, whatever. She dated kind of these alpha male popular guys in high school. I didn't date in high school. I was a nobody. By the way, when I some other time I'll tell my stories about kind of my high school thing. But when I left home, Hans, okay, I gotta tell it, man. I gotta tell it. I'll try to make it quick, but I feel like it's so important here. So when my father left home, my mother was a very dominant woman. She was a Mormon mother, very kind of naive, living in a bubble as well, but a dominant force. Like, you don't mess with my mother, And I was her problem child for sure, because I don't know. I rejected authority in a lot of ways. And I remember I came home from school one day. I was maybe about 16, and she had gone through my room, and I went into her office, and on the conference table, she had laid out a case and a half of beer, my porn magazines that she'd found, this book where I cut out the middle to like maybe hide something or whatever. She thought I was dealing drugs because of that or whatever. And then all these forged notes to me practicing her signature and like stuff to get out of class in high school. And I was like, fuck, And after that she took the doorknob off my door. Has other stories I'm not going to tell to just respect her right now. But anyway, I was just feeling this conflict with her, and I'm feeling violated. And many nights I was sleeping with my window open, like if I have to make a run for it. And I would dream of like escaping to this desert island somewhere and making this life for myself in this unknown place, and getting away from public high school, getting away from living under the thumb of my mother, and like all of this, And okay, I remember so I was always provoking. I was always causing trouble. And one day, I don't remember what I'd done, but she came hauling ass down the stairs to chase me. And I was like, shit, because I'm not going to fight with my mother. And I'm like 16, maybe early 17, but probably about 16. And I run into our recreation room, and I close and lock the door really quick. And I'm feeling, I'm a little bit safe. Well, the next thing I know, she comes barreling through the door, like just put her shoulder to it. But boom, I'm like, holy shit, here comes my mom, and she's pissed, and she wants to get a hold of me, because she would, like when she was physically violent with me. And so I'm like, shit, and I ran towards getting out the door to the outside, and it was like, it wasn't open, it was a little bit jammed. Finally got open, and my adrenaline was pumping. And I get outside, and now I'm like, she can't. I mean, now I'm good. She can't catch me. And I'm a little bit higher ground than her, and she's looking, she's yelling at the top of her lungs, "You get back here right now!" Blah blah blah. And there's this voice, the premier voice of authority in my life, right? And in that moment, I was filled with adrenaline, whatever, and I'd had it up to here, and I had no voice with my mother. I could never tell her how I felt, what I thought. I had no voice. Well, in that moment was when I broke through to reclaim my voice, and I raised both fingers like this, framing her face, like my face is framed right now in the camera, and I was like, fuck you. And I kept yelling at the top of my lungs again and again and again until she stopped speaking. And she went back in the house, and I walked off, and I ran away for a few days, whatever. And through those years, I ran away from home a few times, and then and one day I'd worked all summer doing masonry labor between junior and senior high school, and I was working for my car, for my freedom, right? Senior year, I do not want to be riding the fucking bus. Only losers ride the bus in their senior year of high school, I need a car. So I'm saving up my money. And one day my mom had this like black Pontiac Firebird. And back in the day, like Knight Rider was like the coolest car around, this black Firebird, It was this show on television. And my mom had this car for a year. She tried to get it back from this shop in Western Maryland. They wouldn't give it back to her. And this guy got into prison for stealing cars in the same way. People make the 4-hour trek out there, then he tries to raise the price, and then they can't pay. And then eventually he just owns the car. And so finally she was so frustrated. She's like, all right, Michael, look, if you want to pay what he's asking, you can have the car. If you want to pay what he's asking. And so I was like, all right, I called up, how much, blah, blah, blah. Tell me a number. I get the cash. I go out there, 4-hour drive. They do the same runaround to me. But now they've moved the car to the front. I see it runs and everything. The front of the lot. This is in this junkyard, this old junkyard. And it just had an electrical problem. Anyway, I drive 4 hours back, and I'm just like, it's like, and I want to bring this back to like, you have to, as a man, because you have people ask, a lot of people asking because we don't have, like, what is a man in today's world? Mm-hmm. I feel like one of the things that makes a man is you have to be willing to do what's necessary mm-hmm. on behalf of your people, on behalf of yourself and your people. And that means sometimes the law might stand in the way, yes. All of society might stand in the way. You have to be willing to do what's necessary for you and your people. So anyway, I go back. I talk to my biggest friend I can find. He's like 350 pounds, 6 foot something. And he's got this black Jeep and his hot young girlfriend. He's like 20 or something. And I was like, hey, man, I'll give you some money. Here's the deal. I need you to drive me out there 4 hours. I need to get my car, but this guy was a criminal, And I mean, not like a hardcore criminal, but he was, whatever. He was up to no good. But anyway, I take my mom's buck knife from the house, from the drawer, and I got my keys, and we ride 4 hours out there. Now it's the middle of the night, and there's no moonlight, right? It's just stars, and it's the country. And it's flat as far as the eye can see. The highway just goes on forever. We're cruising up to where this junkyard is, and there's like no lights, And my friend turns off the light in the Jeep and kind of just rolls up. He might have turned off the engine, I don't remember, but he just kind of he was rolling, and I jumped out of the the front seat, and I got my knife and I got my keys, I mean, have I told you this story before?
No.
And I'm gonna get my fucking wheels, man. It's my horse. I'm gonna get my black stallion, my horse. And so then I'm creeping into the junkyard, thank God the gate was open, and it's black. It's a black Firebird, and it's nighttime, but somehow I make it out, and then this dog starts barking. I'm like, fuck, and I go, and it's coming towards me, and it's like, it's a junkyard dog coming towards me, and I fucking, fuck, I got my knife, I need it, and I barely get the door open, I slam it shut, and then I put the key in, and I'm trying to start, and like, motherfucker, start, and the light in the house, there's a house and the property goes on, you can see it in the rearview mirror, I'm like, fuck, trying to start the car, and finally it starts up, and I've never driven it before. I put it in the gear, like, okay, it's going, fuck, and I pull it onto the highway behind my friend. We start going, and I'm following him down the highway, and there's no one from the junkyard following me. But then all of a sudden, in the rearview mirror, I can see lights, police lights, way off down the country highway in the distance. I'm like, fuck. So, and it's coming fast, So I pull off ahead of my friend. We take off down this highway, and at one point, I feel like, okay, the great time to make a turn off. And I turned off. But then my friend, for some reason, he turned off also. And then the cop car right behind him. I'm like, all right, fuck, And I was like, I need to find a place to just pull off. I'm going to try to hide, shut off the lights, and I hope they pass. Well, I see this big row of pine trees, which people often do there. And put pine trees all down one side or both sides of their driveway. Okay, this is my chance, So I go around the corner, pull in, and I go to step on the brakes, and I'm going to turn off the lights so they don't see anything, they don't hear anything, and they just go by. Well, I never driven this car before. I didn't realize how sensitive the brakes were. I hit the brakes and it slams me into the horn. So it's like, and I can't find the switch for the lights. And right at this time, they both drive by. I'm like, I'm so fucked right now, right? Whatever reason, they both kept going by. They didn't, I don't know what happened, but they went by. I backed out the other way. I drove up around through Pennsylvania. I came home the next morning, parked the car behind my house in the lawn, and went into the house like, Mom, I got the car, And I don't know, it's like, but from my point of view, it's like I stole the car back from the guy who stole it from my mom, right? And now it's mine. I got my horse, I got my wheels. And now, like, I'm become, my senior year is about to start. I want to get it fixed up. And so I'm driving over every day to my buddy's house. He's helped me get it fixed up. She says, look, stop driving it because she'll be responsible. She can go to jail if I get in trouble. Anyway, I keep driving it. I'm rebellious. And one day I come home from my buddy's place, and she's like, give me the keys, and my siblings are all there. It's in the front room and dining room area. She wants the keys to my horse, this is my wheels, my freedom, I'm like, hell no, and I don't remember saying that, but I'm just like, and I start walking the other way. She starts chasing me. Now we're chasing around the median of the kitchen and the dining room. And she's like, Katrina, stop him. Lisa, stop him. Dave. And they would like kind of tentatively put out their hands, but they kind of didn't want to get between us. And then I go to head for the front door, and she's like, if you go out that door, don't you ever come back. I just blew through that door. And then I behind me, I hear this boom, and I turn around and see another boom, and she had slammed the door so hard it went through the hinges around to the outside, slammed up against the outside of the house, and then went back closed. I took off, escaped to my buddy's house. Anyway, I wanted to make that point, but I also wanted to share, long story short, I ended up driving across the country, and I landed at this new high school where everyone practically is Mormon. I'm like, this is strange. All of a sudden, I'm not an outsider. I'm not a nobody. I belong. First day of lunch, I sit down by myself at the empty table with my lunch, as I normally would have back on the East Coast. As soon as I sit down, here comes the hot head cheerleader, sits down directly across from me. She's interested in me. Then the whole cheerleading squad follows her, sits down at this table. They all want to talk to the new kid from the East Coast, Like for them, I'm from this other world. It's like I'm from, I'm this cool kid from the East Coast, And it was then when I got the power of just changing location. Mm-hmm. I hadn't done anything except changed my location, It's just, and people will say, look, you can't just change your location to change your life because who you are follows you. Mm-hmm. It's not true. Your environment reflects something different back to you. You have a new chance to be a new person in a new environment and then get that new reflection. It can be really powerful. And I end up using that throughout my next 28 years to transform myself. I used that principle a number of times, including one time when I got on a cruise and I knew, okay, wait a second, let me back up. So I'm like 23. I'm going out with my sister, right? New Year's Eve. We were in an amphitheater type space. So everyone's kind of for their formal New Year's Eve. Everyone's dressed nice. They paid a lot of money to be at this place for New Year's Eve. They got this great band. It's playing music that everyone should be dancing to, but no one's on the dance floor. People are standing around the dance floor. People are looking at the dance floor, but no one's dancing, and I'm with my sister, and we start goofing off like, let's play air guitar across the fucking, you know. And so like we dare each other, right? One of us would do it, you know, on one leg, dancing across playing air guitar, and then the other one would do it. We're just being stupid. And we started being so stupid and laughing, having such a great time, just the two of us. Pretty soon the whole dance floor is full. And I just, something about that was like an opening for me. That was a key for me. Cause like, man, I was in this prison in high school of shyness and this bubble, this perspective. I was in a prison. So anytime I found like a key, it was like, I was fucking hanging on to it. I was like, yeah. So I took it back to Austin. And then what I started doing was every like Friday night, Saturday night, sometimes Sunday night, sometimes other nights, I would go out early, like 9 p.m. No one's on the dance floor, but the dance music is playing, the bands are playing. I would step onto the dance floor and I just copied that routine. I would be crazy. I would just be in my own world and just totally vibing the music and having fun being stupid. I would fill up the dance floor because all people need is one person to get crazy, and then the whole dance floor fills up. And then I would go to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. By the time I was done, it was as if I was drunk, and I did not drink alcohol at this point in my life. But how I knew myself was the life of the party, the guy that starts everything. And that's how everyone saw me in these places. And it was so powerful that it would carry me through for the rest of the night. And actually, because I couldn't talk to women, I developed, that was part of my whole kind of, I mean, for me, there was no like PUA world or whatever, but I was learning whatever I fucking could to try to get access to being better with women, you know? And, one of the things I would do is I would defocus. I had this whole dance floor game that would end up with me going home with girls without speaking to them. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about hot girls, you know, going home without speaking to them. Many of them I would physically turn them on in bed, and then I would leave because I didn't have the confidence to follow all the way through, you know. So it was a strange world where I had no verbal ability and I had a lot of judgments about my body and sexuality and everything else. But I developed a few mad skills that like got me things that like, I mean, it's like crazy. And there was this one guy in university my short time in university who I was like, wow, he was always with the hottest girls, you know? And so I paid attention to him, you know. And I never knew the term peacocking, but this guy would wear outrageous stuff. He would wear his like white socks all the way up outside of his jeans. He would, you know, bandana, long hair, and really good looking guy. But like he would wear like eyeliner and whatever. And somebody's just fucking weird, you know. But and girls would either love him or hate him, you know. But he had these hot girls. And I remember this one time, I had connected with this really hot girl, and they were picking me up, and I'm working at the same French restaurant as him, and him and another guy, you know, it's like, hey, let's get my girlfriend, it's not a girlfriend, girl I was interested in, a ride home from the mall. And so we go to pick her up. And this guy's like, the way he is with her, she's all about him. And I was like, motherfucker, you know? So I was really paying attention because I really had this feeling there's this whole world and I can't access it, you know? And so that was a principle, the peacocking thing. I started doing that like when I would go down 6th Street. And at the time I was like a part-time, like a banquet waiter / catering waiter. And I'd wear my black tuck shoes, my jeans with the holes, and wear my white tuck shirt, and then I had my long blonde hair, and I'd take like something ridiculous, like my multicolored bathrobe tie from home, which is like, I mean, it's like 5 foot long or something, right? Tie it around my head, and then it goes all the way down my back. And I go down to 6th Street, and I walk down, and, you know, I got, you know, guys would say shit to, you know, kind of laughing at me or whatever. I go into the dance floor. Guys are standing around drinking beer, making, you know, snide looks and shit, whatever. Then the dance floor is full, right? And the hot girls are dancing with me, you know? And then I leave on to the next one. And, like, I didn't give a fuck because what I had worked. And I didn't, you know, I mean, I think it communicated that I don't care. that I don't care what anyone thinks. But girls would come up, they'd pull on my tie, they'd do whatever, and right. And so that was like, you asked about my whatever with women, that became like my thing for a while. And then, okay. And then, and also around this time, I'm like, I started a landscaping business, and it was just a little lawn business at first. Anyway, and then I started working just focusing on one wealthy neighborhood. I'm really skipping a lot of stuff here, but these housewives, we have a show in the US called, Desperate Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's like no lie. And it's also one of the things that had me really question marriage, because so many of these beautiful housewives were coming on to me. And I was this relatively innocent, I'm still much the Mormon kind of, even though I wasn't Mormon at this point, I had that innocence and naivety about me. And again, they're coming on to me and I'm not doing anything, I'm not, it's just a lot in the way of that, and
another series of missed opportunities.
Yeah, which again builds this like, I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna figure it out. And I guess one of the next steps in my journey is when I started doing my own live events. The first event that I ever did. So I'm really okay. Let me just jump back to 1997. So I took in my two youngest brothers and another young guy who later became a brother-in-law. And I boot camped them for 6 months in like the way of being a powerful, independent entrepreneur man, and with the women and whatever. It was like a serious, you think of like a military boot camp. This was a boot camp in the life of someone who's a creator in every dimension of life, from the women in the level of challenge that we took on, the new concepts that we created, the tools we explored, and we were allies. And for example, we had a way of speaking absolute truth to each other, and even absolute bullshit, but that points at truth, that points at feedback that otherwise would piss you off, because it's one of the most powerful ways that we stun our evolution is that we surround ourselves with people who won't tell us the truth, people who keep us comfortable. And so for us, being an ally meant I see your highest self, I know your dreams and desires, and I don't accept any weakness from you, and I'm going to treat you as that ultimate man that you are, and I'm going to speak to you that way. I'm not going to honor your fears and your doubts. And we developed technology around doing this in a way where when you do it, instead of someone feeling put off, defensive, whatever, and they can't hear the criticism, they embrace it, they take it in, they turn it into upgrades in their life. This was kind of the beginning. For me, and we experienced radical transformation during this period of time. The three of them went from being minimum wage earning, pot smoking, Nintendo playing guys really not going anywhere with their lives, to all of a sudden in just a few months, they're entrepreneurs. I split my business up into three. I sold it to the three of them, each apart, and boot camped them. They got off drugs. They got fit and lean and muscular. We were going out every Saturday night was our time. And then it was our time to celebrate. It was our time for the ladies. And then we went all out. I mean, we ended up in jail several times together. I mean, it was an amazing time of personal growth. And it's when I started getting visions for like seeing no limits with humanity and what's possible and all this. And that stuff that happened, that later turned into my work that I did with people. So once I did my first, full boot camp, I called it the Wealth Warrior Boot Camp with people. It was a 4-day event. People said it was the most powerful experience of their life. I'll just skip ahead. Obviously, as you can imagine, what happens when women come into a space where you have someone leading them and the whole room in the face, and conflict happens in this boot camp. And the conflict is typically against the boot camp leader, right? Against me. And it's but it's the conflict of their weakness, not wanting to be exposed, not wanting to hang on to the weakness. And as they experience over 4 days, me guide them through without reactivity, without anything, just fully standing for their highest self, to an experience of themselves that's more powerful than they've ever experienced before, that's undeniable, with a whole new vision for their life, not as an idea or a dream, but as like what they see for their future and feel as a response to seeing it. You can imagine the effect that that can have on women who are there participating. So that became, I had a lot of women showing up in my world just from my events and stuff like that. In fact, it was the one way that a woman can instantly see me, like the essence of me, the best in me, the powerful me. And that there's no other way than that induction. And it was so powerful. That led to, and I love challenge. I love being in the unknown, and I'll put myself in situations that are really difficult and challenge myself to deal with them, and taking on that boot camp in the first place, and then just announcing it, and then having people show up from around the world with all these expectations. That was an example of like jumping on the horse, confronting God. Okay, let me announce a boot camp and promise people the world, and then holy shit, they're coming. So, but it forces growth. It forces evolution. You then have to become that guy. There's like no way out without total public humiliation and whatever. There's like, you have to see it through, So as far as personal evolution and becoming the man that you want to be, for me, it's been a series of, I take on a challenge that scares the fuck out of me, but that I also know it's going to be exciting I'll have to, in order to succeed, I'll have to learn things that I don't know now. I'll have to become someone that I'm not now. And so anyway, what ended up happening, like over years of doing this work, like I would lead these intensive events, and sometimes I would have my mother present, a sister present, an ex-girlfriend, a current girlfriend. And then this is a deeply intimate, emotional place with conflict happening. And you can imagine the dynamics that between women and family and girlfriends and whatever that can happen there. But I loved it because I was learning so fast. I was learning so much. I went from, you talked about me mentoring you as a business. I was not really doing my business in a smart way. I was addicted to just doing these boot camps because it was so intense, so challenging. I learned so much, and then developed these really amazing ally relationships with the people who attended. So during this time, I had about 2000, 2001, I met a woman who's 17 years older than me. She had had deep experience with experiential trainings, like in California and stuff, in Hawaii, and like, this is like far out stuff that like comes from the 70s, like transformational work stuff, that changes. It's that kind of thing that changes your life forever, but the borders on being a cult type thing. She'd had a lot of these experiences. She'd been a pioneer in yoga and making yoga mainstream. She was a massage therapist and an esthetician, and she had so much wisdom to bring me. And she was like a warrior. She was a fighter. She wouldn't back down. We had so many confrontations. But my perspective from my time with my brothers was always like learn, master it from every conflict, So and then she was with me and in fact, she challenged me to do my first event, because we participated in something called the Landmark Forum in March 2002. And when we went there, we both were like, that's the way that the forum leader interacts with everyone else. It's how I interact with my brothers and the people I was doing my work with. And instantly I saw kind of a business model I could map onto my work. And, I was like, it was clear. It was like, all right, it's time to announce my event. And I went to announce it for like 6 months or 9 months or something. And she was like, no, 3 months. And I was like, fucking all right, 3 months. And I did it, I announced it for 3 months from then. I promised the world, people showed up. And then she was there with me. She did the yoga there. She supported. She was a woman who really already had this perspective of valuing the feminine, the masculine and the feminine, and the feminine role. And she was such someone who really, she loved serving me. She loved cooking me healthy food, all my meals. She kept this beautiful space for us. She just all about beauty and health and spirituality. And just like, that's what she brought. And she was really she is amazing human being. And yeah, I mean, I've been extremely blessed by her friendship and her allyship in my life. And one day we had done this second level event. We called it the Wealth Creator Boot Camp. Or no, it was some other event, but it was in Reno, Nevada. She came up to me after this event and she said, "Michael, I feel like you've been judging me." And it was like, oh, fuck. And she said, "I want you to tell me your judgments of me." And I was like, all right, that's pretty intense. Here's this woman I'm in this deep relationship with, committed relationship, partner in my work. And I don't want to offend her. I don't want to tell her these judgments I've been withholding from her, but it's like, obviously she can feel them. And I was like, all right, so let's make them transparent and deal with them, So, and then the most amazing thing happened is I was looking this woman in my eye, who was my ally, and I began to speak these judgments. I had an experience of literally like a wall coming down, and I saw through these bullshit judgments to the woman who was there and who'd been there every day and who had my back and who was my support and was loving me and was, and it was the most amazing experience. Immediately I started mapping it onto like technology. Like, went and got my pen and I started drawing out like, how can we put this in a diagram and turn this into a process? And like, that was beginning of something that was called the honor window, which is an amazingly powerful way of bringing down the walls of judgment once they've come up with someone that you love, someone that you're in partnership with, whatever, and finding a place to stand for them and yourself and your people that brings full honor. And the honor is like it brings with it the courage, the peace, the power to face anything that comes up between you. You find a place to stand in your honor for them and for all your people. This amazing leadership became this amazing leadership process. And it's amazing for being in a relationship with women. In fact, I usually don't bring it to my connections with women as I travel. It's way too powerful. I don't want to leave women with broken hearts and false expectations and whatever. It really creates a level of intimacy that most people have never experienced in their life. I mean, they have an experience of someone seeing them, standing for them, and believing in them that most of us never experience, I think, in our lifetime. And so it's not something, I use it carefully. But I brought this to our relationship, and we would start every morning. She and I, Hans, let me go back. Before that first event, I gave a speech after 9/11 at a futuristic summit, kind of a cult-like, a real tight-knit group of futuristic people who believed in logic and radical honesty and entrepreneurship and the individual to really create the future and human liberation and all this. Anyway, I spoke at this event and I turned that speech into my ebook that I think you just read last week or a few weeks ago. And then the part 2. I know you were going to bring that up, so I just want to mention, like, in the timeline of things, that's where that happens. And actually at the time, I think I had come across David D'Angelo, and you can probably, as you read that story, you can see a little bit of the thread of maybe some of his attraction stuff in there or whatever. But where was I?
This woman.
Yeah. So in our relationship actually, um, we had no commitment to sexual exclusivity. We had no commitment to anything except honesty with each other and mutual personal growth. Like we want the best for ourselves and each other in terms of personal growth, and honesty, full on honesty supports that. And what was interesting, although we had a few experiences with other women, just between the two of us with other women, um, we were always, anytime I had an opportunity to be with another woman, I never did, because I knew that I was going to be fully honest with this woman I was in a relationship with, and I didn't want to hurt her. And that was more, in the moment, was more important than the excitement of being with someone else in the moment. Like what we had was so valuable. I didn't want to destroy that and hurt her for some, whatever. And so it was an amazing, powerful experience of being in a relationship. But we were in a lot of conflict together. Like neither one of us backed down. We both speak the truth. We both confront each other. But as we did it, it was like I was just learning massively stuff that would apply to my work and my boot camps. And we would be in the middle of a fight, and I would stop and write down a bunch of notes. And it was awesome, And so that was a big part of my journey. That was a big part of my growth. And then I guess fast forward to 2009. 2008, that business model of just going from boot camp to boot camp, it kind of run its course. And I really needed to do something powerful with money. So I actually attended a course called Money and You, which I would highly recommend to everyone. Really powerful experiential course. It's the kind of learning that I like because it confronts you as different things. Games. You learn through playing games, basically. And through doing that, I got really clear on, and so what I did is I said, okay, I'm looking for what part of my work. I also mapped it on with Jim Collins' good to great model of finding the real model for your business. It's like, what can I be the best in the world at? And I thought instantly of my honor work, my honor window work, specifically. I'd never seen anything like it. I participated in a bunch of different events, never seen anything like it. And I thought, okay, and where is there a lot of pain in the market and that this could address? I thought about people in going through some kind of family or relationship conflict like divorce. Where is there a lot of money at stake? Divorce and a business partnership breakup. What do I love to do? Who do I love to serve? And these were like, people who really want to be leaders. These are either entrepreneurs or people who are going through a divorce who are also their fathers. They care about their people. They care about more than themselves and more than their spouse. That they need to be someone bigger for their future generations, for their children, for everyone. And so so then, okay, all right. And then I took that and I mapped on a business model I'd put together for my old lawn business that really worked. Instantly, like the first week testing this model out, I made $5,000. I was like, all right, this works. And I started just doing it with men, focusing on business relationships, entrepreneur relationships. I'm giving you too much detail. Let me fast forward. It was women who continually wanted my work. And finally I was like, okay, I'm going to work with women. That was January 2009. Instantly, straight out of the gate, I had several high dollar coaching clients who were women, amazing women. Then I did my first event, my retreat intensive, just for women. It was an amazing learning experience. And I don't know if you can imagine, but having a room full of just women and being the man who takes them from hell to heaven, so to speak, and through all their relationship stuff and everything, it's an amazing intimacy created in that space, and also really strong sexual energy, And then after that, there was a weekend where they come to master the honor window work. And it was 13 women. It was me, and it was my buddy I told you about, from Belgium. The two of us scoundrels. He's a scoundrel. But and he actually, I haven't mentioned him, but he's been probably the biggest influence in my journey with women. And he's been a huge stand for me to honor my desire as a man. And he's given me several challenges that then I've eaten up and responded to. Let me fast forward. So I'm trying to cram all this in, but one day, I met him. He came to one of my events, right? He came to one of my events, and we had this really profound connection. He'd spent a lot of time with Native peoples. He'd been on an amazing life journey himself, and he came back to Austin, and I had no time for him. I was in my kind of American visions and blah 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 entrepreneurship, and I was all consumed with this. I didn't have time with him, and I didn't have time for something else that he'd come to bring my awareness to. And he came into my office, and he said, "Michael, I want to bring you something. I have a gift for you. Can I erase one of your whiteboards?" Now, at the time, my whole office was plastered with whiteboards all the way around. And every whiteboard was plastered with visions and ideas and whatever. I had no space for, So anyway, I was like, he was there for me for something powerful. And I let him erase one of my whiteboards. And then he asked me.
Take a picture of it before?
I think I did, yeah. And he asked me, he said, "Michael, what do you want for Michael? What does Michael want for Michael? What do you desire?" Right? And when he asked me this question, and there was two other people in the room who had both been through my most recent boot camp, and they were like allies for me. Now, my event builds really powerful allies in the way that I think most people never experience having allies. And I had kind of a romantic connection with this one woman, and I'll get to that in a second, but tears came to my eyes because I felt like him standing for me. In fact, this was a time of a man coming back for me. It's like this guy could have written me off because I'd basically blown him off. I'd given a really powerful, deep experience, and then he'd come back to connect with me, and I'd kind of blown him off. But then he came back for me, and he stayed, and he's come back for me multiple times. And I've come back for him multiple times. But it's like I'm feeling my emotions, because like my whole thing at the time was about humanity, making a difference, vision for humanity and there were other people, and not about what I want for myself. And I started writing. I started saying things, and he was writing them on the board, And the first things I started saying had to do with my business, and then we had to erase him. He's like, "No, what do you want for you?" And one of the things that I wrote down that I came to that was really clear, and I had to say it in the presence of this other woman who we had this attraction. I almost didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it, And one of the things I realized is how taboo allowing ourselves to even know what our desires are, speak our desires, feel our desires. But I articulated it. I want to travel the world and date exotic, beautiful women from all over the world. It was really clear. It was probably one of the most clear things on that board, if not the clearest. And for me, when I really have something that I connect with, that I desire, and I've seen it, or I've felt it with the honor, like the desire or the honor plus the vision, those things happen for me. Like I can't let those things go. Like they live in my consciousness, And as you know, Hans, I've now lived that. That vision has become real. Traveling the world, dating beautiful women from many continents. Exploring different cultures, speaking new languages. But I'm mindful of the time. But let me fast forward again to the next step in my journey. It was, in fact, January 2010. So I'd worked with women intensely for 1 year. And now I'm going to do an event for one of my clients who is going to pay to fill the event with 30 people, full price. 5-day event, $2,500 a piece. Plus she's paying for all their hotel rooms and food and everything else. She's paid for me and my whole team to come out there to Australia. It was like, I was beginning to have insights about entrepreneurship, about how things didn't have to be a struggle. That's a whole other entrepreneurial. We could have a whole conversation about entrepreneurial insights, right? But
we shall, maybe not
yes.
now, but I think it's very important. But continue.
So at the end of this event, man, there is amazing intimacy, honor, spiritual connection, and sexual energy. Amazing sexual energy. A night or two after this event, I spent an entire night on the beach, Australian beach, by the campfire, surrounded by 3 beautiful women. And, they all wanted to be in my presence, and none of them wanted to let me be alone with the other ones, probably. And I just had, insane abundance there. And maybe a week later, there was, we were at a cafe. It was an evening thing, and people from the event came, and other people came, and I'm like Mr. Popular there. Like everyone. I'm this guy who's taken them from conflicts they've never been able to see their way through to the promised land. So I'm like Mr. Whatever, and I was actually a guy who dropped out of the event. But like a man's man, and a guy that I liked as a friend and as a man. And he was too confronted by the event, he had to drop out. I won't say why, but he came up to me, and he pulled me aside, and he's like, this big Aussie dude, and he's like, Mike, he's like, when you could see me around with all these people. Like, I could see with all these people, yeah, you're Mr. whatever. He's like, you know what you need? You need to just disappear off the face of the earth for a while. Go someplace where nobody knows where you are. They don't know how to reach you. You're not connected. And just go. And here again, it's like a man is like, or someone has laid down a challenge that for some reason I felt it. I was intrigued. I was like, that resonates. There's something there. I got to experience that. So I took people on I created a trip to Africa, took some people on safari for 3 weeks in Africa. This is my second time. We have to talk about Africa on another call. It was my second trip to Africa, and my second amazing kind of connection with women in Africa. And at the end of the thing, there was one who gave me a massage on one of the hotels, and during the safari that my clients left. I went back from Kenya to Uganda. We had extra nights at one of these hotels we hadn't used. I told her to come from Western Uganda. She took a bus for 14 hours to come see me. And we stayed in this hotel for we had a week of extra nights. And no one knew where I was, so I was taking this guy up on this challenge. And I was disconnected, and I spent the week with this woman, and I put myself actually in some dangerous situations, but just following my desire. It was like, it's in a way it's irresponsible to just drop off the face of the earth and not tell anybody where you are or how to get in touch with you or whatever. Like, if you die, that's going to affect not just yourself but other people. Or whatever. It's like, it's somewhat irresponsible in a way. But, and I did more irresponsible things, which we don't need to talk about on this call. But I was really, I'll tell you about one of them. Okay. I'll tell you about one of them that's very PG. So this woman who come to see me. So we go out to the Nile River. There's a Lake Victoria, which is part of the Nile River. Has crocodiles in it, shit like that. And we, go through the slums, and we get to the edge of the Nile River. This is Uganda, Africa. This is like Uganda. This is backwards. This is very undeveloped place. And they happen to have some place where they rent some jet skis. So rent a jet ski, She climbs on the back. There's no light on the jet ski. It's getting dusk, right? We get on the jet ski and sun's going down. The sky is like shrieking red. I mean, the most fiery, bright red and orange. And it's reflected in the water. Sun goes all the way down. As we start riding, the lights, the electricity goes out on the mainland. So there are no lights on the mainland. You can barely make out where the land is. And it's so dark now that the water is black and the land is black. And there's boats on the lake, and because these are like man-made, these are man-driven boats. There's no lights on the boats. And driving this jet ski, you got this screaming African woman who is like, one of the reasons I connected to her is she was a screamer, right? She was so just fucking alive, you know. And African people in general are so alive. It's one of the things that happened to me in Africa. This aliveness is contagious. She's, and I'm trying to scare, driving the jet ski wild, and she's screaming. There's probably crocodiles in the lake. There's black. You can't see if any boats are coming. It's totally dangerous. And I'm just like so fucking alive in this moment, And I just 2010. Before that, I'd started really hunting my aliveness, like really paying attention to like what makes me come alive, and anyway, so my journey had begun. Okay, my last 24 hours in Kenya on that trip, I spent 2 months in East Africa. My last 24 hours was outrageous. It was outrageous. Again, maybe another call, Hans. It was outrageous it's mind-blowing. I mean, mind-blowing. Then I went back to the States, and I experienced life there, how disconnected people were. I would look at people. My heart was so open. I would look at people. They look away. I'd be like, oh. Like my heart was like contracting and like trying to protect itself. And the people were not as fully alive, not as open to just free expression, and the connection with women was different. Like everything was just like, felt like this smaller world. Finally, I was like, you know what? No. Like I had a hold of my aliveness, and I was not going to let it go. And I was not going to just let myself readapt to American society. So my buddy he was in Belgium at this point. He told me about another friend of ours who'd been through my work. She had a place she was renting for a month, she needed someone to house it for a month. And I just got done doing a launch on the internet fucking business. It was not what I was here for. It was one of the things that had me not feeling alive. There's so many ways that I was confronted by American culture and society, and I was really looking beyond it, and I was looking to come alive. I said yes to that ticket. I landed there with $200 to my name. I had sold everything back home. I paid off debts, and I landed there with $200. Brussels.
Oh, okay.
Brussels.
Right.
Then I got another invitation from a woman in Kuwait, and the path I took on, I was like, I'm going to start connecting to my desire, feeling my desire, speaking the truth of my desire. I'm going to stop. I'm stopping my business. I'm stopping my planning. I stopped wearing a watch. I've stopped scheduling things on the calendar. I stopped trying to be in control of my life and my future. And I'm going to start responding to heartfelt invitations I receive. I'm going to start noticing and responding to my desire and hunting my aliveness, meaning like really paying attention to what's making me come alive, and then honoring that and going with that, And so I received a heartfelt invitation to Kuwait. That was phenomenal, amazing learnings with, women and stuff there. Got another heartfelt invitation to Brazil. Then I'm off to Brazil again, landed in Brazil, $200 to my name. And at this point, all I'm doing for money is I have a few female coaching clients who they're having difficulty in their relationship with men, and I'm their go-to guy, And so I'm living a dream. I'm not in my perspective, I'm not working. I'm getting paid pretty decent. I'm traveling across the world. I'm having a real adventure because I'm not planning it out. I'm just following my desire. It's like being on the back of a horse without holding on to the reins, just holding on to the mane and no saddle. And the horse is your desire or your heart or whatever. And you just let it roam. You just let it go or once you go, and you just hang on and just go for the ride. That was kind of my experience of life. And I had radical life transformation insight and I started practicing gifting also. So I stopped borrowing money. I stopped lending money. I stopped, there's two other things there about debt. I stopped all the relations with debt, not using credit cards, blah, blah, blah. And I only giving what I want to who I want when I feel the desire, but never lending. And I started gifting my work. My work and just kind of deep listening and connection with people were my primary, and my stories. Those are my three main gifts that I was giving as I traveled. And as I traveled, people gave me things. I stayed for months at a time in different Brazilian beach houses that were gifted to me. No financial charge. I had a Brazilian girlfriend there making beautiful meals for me. I mean, I was living in a world of miracles, whereas before I was living in a world where I controlled everything. I was in hyper control of everything in my life. Now I'm like living where it's not governed by my will or my vision or my control. It's like, wow, people are giving things to me, and life is providing, nature is providing, and I'm cared for, and it was amazing for me. And I stayed on that path for years. And then the past few years, I've just been coming back to like my vision now, and coming back to that dream of not just wanting to travel the world and date beautiful women from around the world, which I've been doing for a while, but I was mostly doing it without money for the past several years. And then my dream now, and what I really want to master, is I want to be running very high profit businesses as I travel the world with money, and having like some things I couldn't do before when I didn't have much money, but I was traveling the world, was you meet girls in a lot of these countries who they're working 6-7 days a week, even to have them come out with you for an evening, it costs them. They might have to get out of work. They might have to go get their hair done and pay for that. And whatever minimal amount it is to them, it's a lot to them. Mm-hmm. So it costs them money. It's expensive in time and money for them to even see you, let alone go away for a few days with you, or jump on the back of your motorbike and go to the next country over and come back a week later. They can't do that. So, and I couldn't take them on these adventures without money. So as I started having this became one of my main frustrations as I was traveling. And like sometimes I would meet a beautiful woman, and like this one instance in particular in Brazil, I was staying with this one woman. I was really, really drawn this woman was a 10, straight 10 in my book, on all levels. And we had this amazing connection. And then one day she saw me with this other woman, kiss me on the lips. And she did that to kind of claim her territory, because she saw the connection that I had with this other woman. And I had been staying with the other woman because I didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. And we had a great friendship, and we had great sex, and it was a great time, and it was a great experience, a lot of laughter and play, and she was great. But the only reason I was still living with her was to save money. And that ended up costing me this other relationship. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so it's one of those experiences where like, all right, I hear you. All right. Even though I'm experiencing abundance without working, I'm willing to pay the price, make sacrifice, and come back and get into business and go for it. And things have come full circle now with my younger brother, who I introduced to entrepreneurship. He is now, he kind of boot camped me in this new internet model of business the last year and a half. So that's what I've been doing. And now you and I have visions of what we can do for men using that same kind of business model. Yeah, it's exciting.
Wow, man. I've been listening, it's just great. I've going back between feeling alive, just listening to you, and then also thinking, fuck, I could do so much more, But I really resonate with that quest for aliveness. That's the thing that I resonate most. I really like sit in that and then to have that countered, or on the back of that, the honor thing, you know, and what an amazing paradox and juxtaposition and thing to explore. And a great story. What a great story so far. What a
Yeah, and I feel like I know you wanted to talk on a few actionable things, but maybe that's best for another call, because we've already been going for more than 2 hours.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make a second part where we going to use this story into, I see some lights already and some paths, and people can see the important concept for me, the seeking of aliveness, you know, the honor, the vision, the making a stand for something, you know, the desire and what it can bring to you when you just follow that. I can see how, for me, that's very practical, you know, to just hold on to those concepts and what they can mean for us. It will bring into effect many things. But I read and studied more your work that you've been doing over the past decades, and you go into very, very practical, like how-to systems and day-to-day practical exercises and practices. And I would like, let's do that on the next call, and we use them for guys, how they can use the power of honor, of desire, of rituals, how they can use them to get what they want in the land of women.
Awesome, let's do it.
Let's do that. Let's finish the call here right now, then, and say thank you for sharing your story. It's been my main goal. You know, we spent now a month together in Kenya, but you were too busy seeing women to share your story with me. But for me, it's an opportunity to see a bit more of your world, you know, to connect with that, to walk a bit your shoes, you know, and also learn from it, get inspired from it, you know, and forge our friendship and become allies, you know. And I feel very honored, you know, I feel very strong, also feel very affirmed that you showed up in my life, that we already in such a short time have these amazing stories together, you know. It's just, I've said it to people, what happened in Kenya, it will stay with me for the rest of my life. It's maybe the most incisive experience I've had when it comes to understanding the land of women and understanding my role as a seducer and all of that, you know. So I'm just, and I feel it's just the beginning, you know. I really feel like, okay, now my life can really begin, you know. So I'm very excited for the future. I'm very grateful.
I feel the same way, you know. Yeah, we get to make it all up, and
okay, we're back recording. We had a little bit of,
yeah, I was just saying,
go ahead.
Yeah, we might still have a technical difficulty, but I was just saying, yeah, the future is wide open. It's ours to create. And, you know, I've been waiting a long time and envisioning for a long time. Yeah, a group of men, you know, rogue warrior, creator, adventurers to come together and both cause havoc and create amazing things in the world. You know, it's been a long time vision of mine, and I've done some of that with guys, you know, but it's, you know, when it's powerful. Like, you've been putting out a call for men, you know, to show up, and I'm one of the ones that responded. And I know it's exciting for you, because I know how it is. Like, when I put out the call and O showed up, like that guy I told you about, like, he shows up. And I've had whole roomfuls of guys show up like that. It's like powerful, you know, and it really affirms your path and your destiny and your mission, and it's exciting. And yeah, and I just want to share that with everyone listening, like, you know, to show up and come to, like, accept Hans's invitation, because he's got some powerful things to give. Just show up and let a man give his gift to you 100%, and just open yourself to receive. It's a really powerful way of connecting with another man who can be a brother and an ally, and encourage you guys to do that. And yeah, excited. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to connect also with men and a chance to give back and share some of what's made a huge difference in my life. And if I can help guys avoid some of the missteps and suffering and whatever that I've experienced, help give shortcuts, then it's, it's great. Thanks for the opportunity, Hans.
More to come, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to close this in 10 seconds. So thank you again, Michael, and we'll see you for part 2.